and let us all do we can to build a better future.
With that being said, we have a online guest that was really awesome. And this group, his organization that he's a part of, has been doing a lot of phenomenal work and even confronted Governor J.B. Pritzker and his administration. And I think it's only fair that we introduce this guest for our viewers and subscribers. I want everyone to give a shout out to Allan Max Axelrod. Thank you so much for joining Hard Lens Media. Now, your group has been doing some fantastic work, and I think it's only better that you explain what your organization has been doing, how you've been confronting Governor J.B. Pritzker, and really how a lot of our viewers and subscribers can be motivated by just how you're standing up for working class people. So, Allan, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kit. So my name is Allan Max Axelrod. I'm the campaign lead of No Ameren Shutoffs. It's a $0 coalition of 52 member organizations and counting, spanning the state of Illinois, north and south, east and west. We've won 4 statewide moratoria extensions in this state of Illinois, as well as $112 million dispersed automatically to 121,000 households during this pandemic. We've passed resolutions in 10 resolutions across 9 political bodies in 6 counties, calling on Governor J.B. Pritzker to act. We've disrupted his press conferences in Urbana, in Macomb, in Belleville, in Pembroke Township, in Springfield, and most recently in Bloomington, Illinois. And the reason that we've been doing all of that is because this is something that is a very severe pandemic safety issue. When someone's utilities are shut off during the pandemic, it actually can cause an increase in the spread. This isn't something you have to believe me about. This is something that is cited in the 2007 Congressional Research Service's report entitled Pandemic Influenza: An Analysis of State Preparedness and Response Plans. And they were looking at all the different measures that states should take in order to keep their residents safe during a pandemic. And in Table 8, they included the continuity of essential services such as public utilities. In the state of Illinois, we've had our utility protections lapse numerous times, including right now. In fall of 2020, when our utility moratorium expired, 2 weeks later, we were over 2,000 cases a day. 3 weeks later, we were over 3,000 cases a day. 4 weeks later, we were over 4,000 cases a day. And just over a month after that, we were at over 6,000 cases a day, all before Halloween, all before the election. The caseload was so severe and it caused such a massive spread that after the election, Illinois was the #1 state in new coronavirus cases for more than 2 weeks. And this is not because we have more Republicans than Florida. We don't. It's not because our restaurants are better than Texas's, although, you know, people will debate that.
Well, you know, actually, for a little funny side note, Chicago food is #1. But again, what you're talking about is very serious, and you know, it's okay to alleviate the mood here. But we're talking about 6,000 cases and rising, where people don't have access to their utilities, clean drinking water, heat, electricity, and let's face it, without these basic essentials, life becomes extremely difficult, especially those who already have current ailments or have family members struggling with disabilities. So well, let's go ahead and have you continue on about really just how bad this was getting for a lot of working class families living in the state of Illinois, because a lot of our viewers, they might see Illinois and notice that predominantly Democrat, especially in the state legislature as well as the governor's office. But again, people were being left to fend for themselves. So can you please elaborate even further?
Yes. In 9 weeks last year, we had 81,000 households disconnected. And that's something that you got to factor in, 2.54 people per household. This affected elections. And it's not something where I can just casually state that. You have to look at how Madigan was axed right afterwards by first Dick Durbin, then Governor J.B. Pritzker, when they were blaming him for the election results. This started with an Illinois Congressional District 13 candidate losing her race, very predictably so, and they wanted to actually deflect blame. But you got to look at how much the fair tax vote lost by. Did Governor Pritzker really do everything in his power to get that to pass when we had 81,000 households disconnected right before the election. So this is a really severe issue that begs the question of why is it that not only was our government not acting, but they lied to the press. So on October 27th, 2020, amidst all the COVID caseload increases, arguably one of the most severe, we had passed the day before, so October 26, 2020, a resolution unanimously through the city of Urbana calling on Governor Pritzker to enact a mandatory moratorium without means testing on utility shutoffs. So then on October 27th, he comes to the city of Champaign. He's asked about utility shutoffs, and he has a very prepared lie that he issues. He says that I don't have the ability to stop utility shutoffs like that. And we were able to educate the media, the local media that asked him that question, to actually fact check him. And they found out that indeed he was lying. Through Section 7 of the Illinois Emergency Management Act, the governor has the ability to regulate goods and services inclusive of public utilities. And this is something that has been done in states like Kentucky and New Jersey. Now, I live in downstate Illinois. We're sometimes derisively called Northern Kentucky. Yet in the fall of last year, we found ourselves with less protections than folks in Kentucky. That was a disgrace. But when we looked at the governor's own statements of economic interest, these are his financial conflict of interest filings, there was some very interesting mentions on there. And I'm not talking about some small medical company that then right-wingers use to say that this is the governor, using the pandemic to enrich himself. But he had actually inherited upwards of 24% of his current net worth from a series of transactions from 2007 to 2013 from Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway owns Mid-American Energy outright, owns one of the major rail lines in our state that ships coal to our utilities, and we saw fluctuations in their stock prices with each of the first 3 moratoria fights that we had. Again, because we had won 4 moratoria on utility shutoffs, and each one of those 3, every time the utility moratorium was set to expire, the stock prices for all 3 of the major companies we were tracking, Berkshire Hathaway, Exelon, which owns Commonwealth Edison up by you all, and Ameren Corporation, which owns Ameren, Illinois, all spiked upwards each time. And in fact, the day after he was fact-checked from that October 27th, 2020 piece by local media here, the stock prices dipped for all of them for about a day and then went right back up when he did nothing.
Well, again, that's some fantastic work, and this is the kind of work that we here at Hard Lens Media want to see, where activists are not only able to hold the politicians accountable, but even the media, be it somewhat even tied to establishment media, are at least able to, again, hold the politicians' feet to the fire. And for a lot of our viewers and subscribers who don't notice, and Alan, I would like you to chime in as well and add in any kind of additional information, but Governor J.B. Pritzker, the Pritzker family, has a lot of ties to the Democratic establishment, especially here in the state of Illinois. And as we've said on the show and even on our other YouTube channel, Chicago Corner, the Democratic establishment has firm control over here. There's a fully functioning machine of bribery, corruption, and it's very effective. And we've perfected feudalism here in the state. But another sad fact about Illinois is that the Democrats do have the power to remove this flat tax, as you brought up earlier, because it's very important that we talk about this flat tax. But the thing is, in order for anything to be done to the Illinois state constitution, as where this flat tax is in, the House and Senate in the state of Illinois have to agree on getting it out. Putting it in simple terms. But the thing is, with Governor Pritzker, he was talking about putting in a progressive income tax. That's what he was running on, as well as a few other issues. But when push came to shove, when he wanted to fight for it, he was kind of, weak sauce about it. So I would like you to add in just a little bit more information, because again, what we saw there, especially with so many people being left in the wilderness in this state, it's quite clear that the governor has a lot of things to answer for, especially being confronted by you guys, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so I mean, this just goes back to the fact that utility shutoffs are a form of voter suppression. And the governor tried to say that he was doing everything in his power to keep people safe. That was a lie. He was trying to say that he was doing everything in his power to pass the fair tax. That was also a lie. There was a lot of money that came through to different organizing entities down here for people to fight for the fair tax. And I, in fact, phone banked for the fair tax. But one of the things that people don't talk about is what are those volunteers doing during this pandemic? And we spent a lot of energy trying to keep ourselves safe. So if you're looking at the amount of labor that they were trying to organize to pass the fair tax, even they were actively disorganizing that labor by not keeping their volunteers safe. One of the other things that's really important to look at in the scheme of all this is that Governor Pritzker brands himself as an independent from the political establishment billionaire, right? And so we do see these contradictions where he's very tied to some things and then he's not. And so one of the things that I'll just mention when it comes to the state Democratic Party is that I was a Bernie Sanders delegate in 2020, and they sent all the delegates this nice little convention from home kit. And at the very top of this thing, including all their sponsors, is frickin' People's Gas. Like, they don't even hide how beholden.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Can you please show that image again one more time, just so our viewers and subscribers can understand it? Because when we talk about Illinois politics, especially with one of their donors, if we can actually zoom in and see that People's Gas, I think you might have to move to the side there. There it is. Okay, I think we can see a little bit of it. There we go. Wow, that is just absolutely incredible that the Illinois Democratic Party did that. And said, continue on. That's insane.
Well, yeah, and see, that's just the insanity of last year. Then Biden gets elected, and then some dynamics start to get really, really weird. And so here's an example of that. Last year, we were able to get a regulatory body called the Illinois Commerce Commission to not only negotiate for voluntary moratoria on utility shutoffs, but they also published an open letter calling for it, adding pressure. Then Biden goes into office and they are completely silent. Actually, they're worse than silent. They voted to resume utility shutoffs, and they lied there too. They said it was going to be slower utility shutoffs than what we saw last year. That was a lie. And the governor, who didn't want to clean up their mess because of the pressure that we exerted, had to clean up their mess. So a little bit about that. April 5th, he comes to the city of Champaign and he basically says, I am hopeful that we'll be able to stop the surge using vaccines for the first time ever. He's saying we are just going to use vaccines. We're not going to reinstate utility shutoffs or any similar protections. We pass a resolution through the committee of the whole in Urbana the day after that, or actually that same day. Then the week after that, we pass the resolution through the city council unanimously. Then the week after that, we pass something that's very similar to a resolution called an initiative in the city of Bloomington, also unanimously. And if folks know Bloomington and Urbana city councils, a lot of people on there hate each other. A lot of those people hate me too. They still passed it. Then 3 days after we passed that second initiative, Governor Pritzker made 2 executive orders on Earth Day. One that had something to do with Earth Day, and the other one announcing $80 million for 80,000 households with a one-time program called the Utility Disconnection Avoidance Program. In 17 days, we turned him from going to only use vaccines to fight the pandemic to willing to spend $80 million. We kept passing resolutions through county after county, through body after body. The Peoria City Council was one of those bodies that also passed it. But also, when it comes to the nuanced corruption and infighting within the Democratic Party, here's some really interesting tidbit to this, because we are a multi-partisan coalition, and the following Democratic parties in this order passed resolutions calling for Governor Pritzker to stop utility shutoffs. The Macon County Democratic Party, the Champaign County Democratic Party, the McDonough County Democratic Party, the Sangamon County Democratic Party, and the Peoria Democratic Party. So how many different Democratic parties need to pass a resolution saying Governor Pritzker stop utility shutoffs before he does it? Maybe having a quote unquote independent billionaire was a bad idea for governor.
Well, I think, and also another thing too, because Heartlands Media, we actually had a chance to interview candidate J.B. Pritzker way back in 2018 when we used to be on radio and on public television. And we did also have the opportunity to at least, get his perspective. Mind you, it was only 8 minutes, and then that was it. We tried to give him a full 30-minute interview, but for some reason his campaign was never quick to respond to us. But however, one thing I want to note out to all of our viewers, as it stands right now, the race for the governorship in 2018 during that election cycle was the most expensive one in American history, where you had Bruce Rauner, another billionaire, a Republican, versus, again, Governor J.B. Pritzker, another billionaire, Democrat. So we traded one billionaire for another, and as I like to say in the show, quoting Joe Biden, nothing had fundamentally changed, but I could say Pritzker did follow through with cannabis legalization, even though I think it could have been far more progressive. And of course, him standing up to Trump, but that's like an easy one, too, to expect from Democrats. It's like low-hanging fruit for any Democrat to do to really confront or try and be antagonistic towards Donald Trump. But that's, again, that's a Democratic Party for you. So the thing is, now seeing this in action from Governor J.B. Pritzker, has he been able to, or has any spokesperson from his administration reached out to your organization, trying to at least maybe get a better understanding with all the hard work that you're doing, or is there still radio silence?
Well, so all the way back in the beginning, during the racial justice protests, when we were like, oh no, utility shutoffs are being added to this, everybody's bandwidth was pressed to the maximum. And so we had to come up with an efficient organizing structure so that people can maintain their commitments while also stopping this horrific thing. Every organization that joined No Amarin Shutoffs during the first window of recruitment sent an email to Governor Pritzker's office and to the lieutenant governor. The lieutenant governor was the only one to respond. They were the ones who pointed us to the Illinois Commerce Commission. The governor has only responded to us via subtweet once, as far as I can tell. And this is where he's saying, like, stay calm, we're actually doing things in good faith, but he actually said some things that referenced us. So that's the only time where we actually were able to see that there was any communication. Oh, wait, no, there's one other one. When we had folks disrupting his press conference in Springfield and being escorted out by the National Guard, there was a very compromising statement said into their text-to-speech reader, which was, let them go to hell. Now, this is the microphone for the governor's press conference that someone spoke into that when the camera was off. And so we received a lot of correspondence by proxy saying the governor promises he didn't say that. Someone else must have.
Someone else must have. Now, again, we've done a lot of work, and before we even had you on, you talked about how you did a lot of video production work as well. And I think it's only fair to say when the microphone is on and you're speaking directly to it, as I'm speaking to the microphone here, and the words "let them go to hell" are said, somebody said it in proximity close to that microphone. And I guess process of elimination, Pritzker was kind of close to it. Or is there something that needs to be brought up? Because, again, Governor J.B. Pritzker did run, his campaign was basically making Illinois better, getting rid of the Bruce Rauner administration, standing up to Trump, all that stuff that we were hearing throughout that election cycle. But yet the fact that Governor J.B. Pritzker's his administration quickly said, no, he didn't say that. Your thoughts?
Well, we have no proof that he said it because there's also this whole, circulation of officials in front of those microphones during a press conference, and the cameras were off. However, we do know that he has quite a temper tantrum. One of the things that he did right after the press conference on October 27, 2020, when he had lied to the local media here, he then had a subsequent press conference. He's usually very punctual to his press conferences. He was something like 40 minutes late. He gets a right-wing question that is irritating, to be fair, but nearly bites the dude's head off. So the thing is that it very well could have been him. And if you had to ask me who I thought it was, it's either a really unfortunate audiovisual worker who had their sound check at a really bad time, or it was the governor. But the more important thing in all of this is that he protects himself through a lot of mythology, and we have to break that down. So the first thing is that this is a governor who has repeatedly issued disaster proclamations authorizing his ability to use the Illinois Emergency Management Act to stop utility shutoffs and eviction. Okay. Or utility law. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Your screen was frozen just for a little bit. I was wondering, can you please repeat your statement?
Yeah, this is a governor who claims that he is independent, yet can't stand up to the realtor lobby. This is a governor who claims he's independent, yet can't stand up to the utility lobby. And that's because he in fact, is not. It's his own statement of economic interest. And the fact that there's not been an investigation of this speaks to the level of normalized corruption in our state. When the mythology comes out about how Governor Pritzker beat Governor Rauner in one of the most expensive campaigns, two things that people may not remember. The Republican Party revolted against Governor Rauner. He was hugely unpopular even among their own ranks. And I'm not talking about the fact that he almost lost his Republican gubernatorial primary. I'm talking about how the budget crisis that Rauner manufactured was actually overwritten with Republican collaboration. So any Democratic gubernatorial candidate with a pulse could have won that particular election. There was nothing special about Governor Pritzker other than he was able to win the primary in a very crowded election. And here's another thing. We have seen both downstate and at the gubernatorial level what they do when they know that there are progressive challengers. And this is the same thing that happened to Bernie Sanders at the federal election. They crowd the field and then they have the moneyed campaigns win. That's how Betsy Dirksen Londrigan won her primary in the Illinois 13th congressional district and never performed better than Dr. David Gill, who is a previous congressional candidate who did way better on a Medicare for All platform than any of these corporate shills ever did on their public option. But the other thing is that that's the same thing that happened to Biss at all when it came to the gubernatorial primary. And that's the same thing that happened to Sanders when it came to the presidential primary. These are strategies that are used to crowd people out. And one of the things that we need people in Illinois to understand is that this same governor who disconnected his own utilities for a tax break, this same governor who has lied about his ability to stop utility shutoffs during a pandemic, who said that he was doing everything that he could, who claimed that he was standing up to Trump, but in reality was actually allowing for terrible things to happen during the pandemic and continues to, has no expected challenger, which means that if anybody thinks that they can get 3,200 and change petition signatures from Democratic blind voters, they can be on the ballot for this state and go head to head with the governor, where it is literally a progressive versus the establishment. So that is something that people need to recognize. No Hammer Shutoffs is a non-electoral coalition. We do not have the organizational governance required for that level of nuanced dissent and dispute when it comes to how to best navigate electoral spaces. That's why we've been pressuring the state government at every particular level. But the reality is that when we continue to pass all those resolutions, getting $112 million out of the original $80 million announced, when that whole program expired, the current pandemic spike that Illinois is in started 2 weeks after that. Yeah, go ahead.
I just have to say that the work that you've done, and especially on your Twitter account too, where you're sharing some of the video work that you and your organization, because it wasn't just you, it was numerous other heroic individuals stepping up, speaking truth to power, and confronting those who have the power to actually do the right thing. It's something that we need to see more of, and I'm glad that we're seeing at least the Pritzker mythology or the Democratic establishment get shook up here in the state, because for far too long the Democratic machine has been getting away with a lot, and there's no excuse from any Democratic lawmaker that they can't get rid of the flat tax unless they want to keep it in there. And again, the House and Senate, in order to do anything to the Illinois State Constitution, they all have to unanimously agree to get rid of the flat tax and put in the progressive income tax. But yet, it might be childish to blame the Republican state party, but the Republicans don't have a majority in the House or Senate. The Democrats could. They could monopolize. They could use their power, but they're choosing not to, and we're still stuck in this very unfortunate situation. And I'm glad you also brought the fact that our governor's race in 2018 was a crowded field, and it's looking like Governor J.B. Pritzker will run unchallenged in the next governor's race if he does choose to run. But I think because I want to ask you two other questions. So with what your organization has done, what has been like? And this is a two-part question. What has been the feedback from the people that you've been reaching out to that need your help? And at the same time, too, what are some of the other major achievements that your organization has done to really show that you guys are not going anywhere?
So I've actually been thanked by quite a lot of folks who had received utility disconnection avoidance program dollars. There's also a lot of interviews just promoting the governor and the state where they're actually talking about this as if he did it with his own volition, where you can actually see what that impact is. But what's more frustrating is that I had talked to Ameren, Illinois employees who had been leaking information to us, and they talk about how there are nurses who are trying to save people's lives during this pandemic who are having their utilities shut off. And so I honestly need for us to keep them in focus, because we literally had, just in the month of October, because the reporting just came out, 50,000 households disconnected just in that month. That's more than in October of last year. Just to give you a sense of scale, the total number of utility shutoffs that have happened since July of 2020 is 372,000. More than half of that has happened in the last 3 documented months, from July through October. 194,000 households. That is over 500,000 people who are having their lives put at risk. We are having more people die by our 7-day average than in spring before the vaccine was widely available. And this is where we have a state that has a lower vaccination rate than Florida, according to Johns Hopkins, by 1%. But if you look at the percentage of people vaccinated in a state like Florida that has been lambasted this entire time during the pandemic, and for justified reasons, mind you, they are not better on utility shutoffs than Illinois at all. They are terrible. They have vaccinated more people than live in our state. So this is the really messed up thing. And things are so bad that we have a resolution being discussed right now at the Champaign County Board of Health that was submitted by a self-identified Republican libertarian to try and ask our government to step in to stop utility shutoffs. We have folks in Springfield right now, these are People's Party members, who are going to the city council and asking them to engage with us to stop utility shutoffs, do a presentation or a resolution or whatever in order to amp up that pressure. We have folks in numerous counties still being approached for resolutions on utility shutoffs, because the question we have to ask Governor Pritzker is, how many political bodies will it take before you do what science says that you should do? And the thing is that we are not relying on Governor Pritzker. We can't. There is something called the Maintaining Access to Essential Services Act of 2021. And it is a bill in the Congress that would wipe utility debt, restore everybody's utility services, and suspend disconnections, as well as stop the credit reporting requirements and liens on people's homes that happen due to all of this. And that bill is pretty interesting from the perspective of, let's talk about Sanders for a second. He ended his campaign for what reason?
Well, if we're going to be going on this, I have a lot of criticism towards the Sanders administration, because I held out hope that his campaign would have been ready for the 2020 election cycle and would have been ready to deal with election fraud that his campaign dealt with in 2016. But again, the compromise was this infrastructure package, as well as, again, trying to defeat Trump. But we could be here all day on my true feelings of Bernie Sanders and how he quit. That's just my thoughts, my belief. It was a quit. It was a cop out, when there was a huge pathway tailor-made for anyone running on a progressive agenda, especially in 2020, where he could have taken advantage of it and he chose not to.
Well, so there's one other dimension. Let's go off of what he said. He said he was stopping his campaign so that he could focus on the pandemic. He is not yet a sponsor of the Maintaining Access to Essential Services Act of 2021. This is, as the National Consumer Law Center had said in The Intercept's October 24th piece, this is, like, I'm going to paraphrase, but they basically said this is one of the most immediate, subtle, and pernicious ways to harm people during a pandemic. How could someone who ended their presidential campaign saying that they were going to focus on the pandemic that is ongoing and killing more people, at least in Illinois, than in this past spring, and not be a sponsor of this. We have folks in Illinois who are sponsors of this. Chuy Garcia is a sponsor of this bill. And that's basically it as far as Illinois' representatives go.
Nothing from Marie Newman or her staff hearing her, because she ran as a Justice Democrat and as progressive as well.
So there's a really interesting thing about the Justice Democrats and all of that, but here's what I'll say. Marie Newman was a sponsor on Cori Bush's and Jamal Bowman's public power resolution, talking about how utilities are a right. And she is not yet a sponsor of this bill, while Jamal Bowman is. While many other folks who sponsored that resolution are actually sponsors of the Maintaining Access to Essential Services Act. Now, I get that folks are busy with the infrastructure bill and with all of the other things that are dominating the media, but we need folks to be rigorous when it comes to immediate pandemic safety. Because here's the thing, here's the political theater that we're about to walk into. The winter moratorium is going to keep people safe. That is literally a press release from November 3rd, 2021 in New York. People get their utilities shut off in winter. People do not get their utilities restored during winter. In fact, this is where the 81,000 households disconnected in 2020 across 9 weeks in Illinois came from. On September 24th, the Illinois Commerce Commission announced the third moratorium extension on utility shutoffs that the No Ameren Shutoffs campaign had won. That moratorium adopted winter protections early and failed miserably. So we are about to see all of those same harms come back. And that is something that our Congress can stop. Because even if our governor won't, even if our state legislative body can't, or at least says that they can't, our Congress can. And this is something that has been consistently multi-partisan. I say multi-partisan deliberately because there are a lot of third parties in the No Ameren Shutoffs coalition. There are a lot of Democratic parties that have stepped up. There are a lot of Republicans who have voted for utility shutoff resolutions to protect their residents.
So, two things here I want to bring up, because as we get to the final part of this final part of this interview, number one, you already have a large coalition. You have, and maybe this might be shocking in today's political environment, you have People's Party, you have Libertarians, you have Republicans, you have Democrats, you have Progressives, you have Socialists, you have everyone of every political spectrum here in the state of Illinois working together so that their fellow neighbors, friends, family members aren't left without utilities. I think that's a wonderful achievement. What your organization has done. So, two-part question, final question for you. Number one, for our viewers and subscribers, especially those who live in the Illinois, state of Illinois, or know anyone to live in the state of Illinois, where can they go online to find your group's information? Where can they find you guys to support you guys through social media? And then number two, is there any events or groups or coalitions that work in conjunction with you that you want to help promote, just so that our viewers know who they are?
Yeah, so you can find us by going to hashtag No Ameren Shutoffs on Facebook or Twitter. We are a $0 campaign, and we did that deliberately because we saw the scale of this issue, and there was no way we'd ever be able to fundraise the mutual aid necessary in order to help people by a nonprofit-esque model. We needed the government to step in. And so we made a very firm commitment to that. So we don't have a website, but you can go to hashtag No Ameren Shutoffs and you can find a lot of our member organizations. A lot of people don't know how to spell Ameren. It's Ameren. So No Ameren Shutoffs.
We're actually going to show the document. I think it's only fair. Can you just show that document? So there's the hashtag No Ameren Shutoffs. So again, FaZe is highlighting it. It's hashtag NOAMREN SHUTOFFS, No Ameren Shutoffs. Please check out this hashtag. Everyone that's watching it, screenshot it, grab it while you can. And again, you can find this document that your group was kind enough to send us to us in our show notes in the description box below. You guys are doing some phenomenal work. But before anything else, I just want you to help promote any kind of other groups that are working with you, just so that they're given the due respect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So pandemic coalitions have been pressed to their limit, right? So we actually only recently learned about a group called the People's Response Network that operates out of Chicago. And they have been fighting for pandemic demands the entire time as well. They're currently focused on getting the schools to shut back down because it is measurably not safe. Again, we've had over 2,000 cases a day for our 7-day average in Illinois. Since August 3rd, more than 100 days ago, we are on track to have the longest time above 2,000 cases a day average since the pandemic began. And so they tomorrow have a rally calling for the closing of the schools in order to protect our students, parents, and teachers, because the vaccine rollout is not happening as fast as people are advertised to believe. We only have 57%, and that's an overestimate, more than likely, just because I don't have the number in front of my face, of our population is vaccinated. In Illinois, we are so far beyond the original computation of the actual herd immunity level, pardon me. So I'm pulling up right now the email for their most recent event so that I can tell you where and when that will be.
Okay.
So they have CPS Speaks Out Wednesday at 6 p.m. And it's going to be actually over Zoom. You can go to bit.ly/United Coalition with a capital U and a capital C. And this is from the People's Response Network. And this is led by an actual medical professional who's retired and looking at how politicians are lying to everybody, including medical officials are lying to folks. The data shows a very different story. And so these are just folks who are fighting like hell in what ways they can to keep their neighbors and residents safe. And so I think that folks should totally, if they can, attend their event tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central.
Right. That's fantastic work. The groups that you are associated with and the people that are a part of your organization are doing something really historic, in my opinion, for the people in the state of Illinois. Governor J.B. Pritzker has a lot to answer for, in my opinion, especially when we get into the next governor election cycle, which is very close, right around the corner, dare I say it. And the thing is, what I have to say, and this is something that I think a lot of my colleagues here at Hard Lens Media will agree with, we like to see a coalition of people from different political points of views working together, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have the same hopes and dreams, and we all want to have a better future. So I'm really impressed with the fact that you have so many people of diverse backgrounds working together to hold the Illinois state government at all levels accountable for its inept leadership. So Allan Max Axelrod, I'm very glad that we had a lot of activists reach out to us here at Hard Lens Media to have you on. You've done a phenomenal job, and I want to actually do a follow-up interview with you sometime soon so that we can find out what further actions or inactions our state government is doing and what you guys are doing to still keep on pushing the initiative of helping out working-class families in the state of Illinois. This has been a phenomenal interview, and I'm very glad that we've had you on.
Well, thank you so much, Kit, in solidarity.
Absolutely. And one final note, too, again, to everyone that's watching this live stream, you could find the Word document that his organization was kind enough to send me in the show notes in the description box below. Thank you so much, Allan Max Axelrod. Peace to you, man, and we're going to continue on with the rest of the show.
Thank you so much.